Most empires do not collapse. Most empires do not collapse the moment they lose power. They collapse the moment the world realizes they are no longer as powerful as they once were. This is one of the things people misunderstand the most. Because most people imagine global power shifts as a single event, a great war, an economic crisis, a bad leader, or a sudden destruction. But history usually does not work that way. History is quieter, more patient, and far more confusing. Real change begins first in places people cannot easily see. In trade, production, debt burdens, monetary systems, military pressure, and in people's trust in the system itself. From the outside, everything may still look strong. Flags continue to wave, currencies are still used, leaders still speak with confidence. But behind the curtain, the system has already started to grow tired. Then a crisis arrives, and the cracks that have been building for years suddenly become visible to everyone. People call it a sudden collapse. In reality, that collapse had been preparing itself slowly for years, without anyone noticing. At the intersection of money, power, and history, the important thing is this. Systems change before people realize they have changed. The public usually sees only the final scene. A war begins, markets crash, currencies lose value, a major diplomatic defeat happens, and everyone says that was the beginning. But the real beginning happened much earlier. Production had already shifted to other countries, debt burdens had become unsustainable, allies had quietly started searching for alternatives. Trust had slowly eroded long before it became visible. Rome is one of the best examples of this. People remember the fall of Rome as a dramatic event, but the collapse had actually been preparing itself for centuries. Political crises, heavy taxation, economic problems, disrupted trade, and constant military pressure. From the outside, the empire still looked enormous, but internally the structures holding the system together were slowly dissolving. By the time the barbarian invasions arrived, Rome had already lost the capacity to reproduce its former strength. The visible collapse came late. The real collapse had started long before. The same thing happened to Spain. In the 16th century, Spain looked like one of the centers of the world. Silver flowing from the Americas, massive armies, global power, and extraordinary prestige. But sometimes extreme wealth can hide weakness. Silver was pouring into the country, but it was also fueling inflation, damaging the economy, and increasing dependence on foreign production. Spain declared bankruptcy several times, yet from the outside it still appeared unbeatable. Because prestige often survives longer than real power. Then came the transition from the Dutch to the British. For a period, the Netherlands stood at the center of trade and finance. Amsterdam looked like one of the most important cities in the world. But behind the scenes, England had managed to build a larger naval force, greater industrial capacity, and a stronger state structure. By the time people realized the British century had begun, the transition had already happened. The clearest example is the transition from Britain to America. Britain still looked like the center of the world, but America had already begun quietly surpassing it in production, industry, and financial power. World War I and then World War II accelerated this shift. When the Bretton Woods system was established, the world officially recognized the new order. But the real transformation had started years earlier. The American century did not begin when it was announced. It began when Britain lost its material superiority. Great powers usually lose strength in similar ways. Debt grows, productive capacity declines, military burdens become heavier, and trade advantages slowly erode. Yet despite all this, the old order can continue looking powerful for some time. Because people do not easily abandon the systems they are used to. Currencies, alliances, and institutions continue carrying the weight of past power for a while longer. Prestige does not die easily. Then an event arrives, a war, a financial crisis, an energy shock, or a major strategic mistake. And in that moment, people think everything changed overnight. But in reality, what changed was not the world itself, but the speed at which people recognized the truth. Part of the reason the world feels so tense today is because of this. The old order still appears strong. The dollar is still at the center, America is still extremely powerful, and the global system still seems functional. But at the same time, the world is becoming more fragmented, harsher, and more fragile. Trade is becoming politicized, military spending is rising, and countries trust each other less. These are not just daily headlines. They are signs of deeper changes happening underneath the system itself. Most people only notice the dramatic stag of a transition, but the real transition begins much earlier. First production changes, first debt accumulates, first trust erodes. Then a crisis arrives, and suddenly everyone realizes it at the same time. That is why history often feels as if it moves slowly at first, and then all at once. Because first reality changes, and only afterward do people accept it. If this gave you new insight, subscribe to the channel.